The airplane cabin hums with the quiet noise of 100 conversations. Row 18, seat B. That's where 17-year-old David Thompson sits, clutching a folder marked Columbia University interview. His hand shakes slightly as he reviews his notes one more time. This interview could change everything for him and his mom back in Brooklyn. Beside him in the aisle seat sits Daniel Miller, expensive suit, gold watch that costs more than David's mom makes in 6 months. Daniel's been annoyed since takeoff. Annoyed at the crowded cabin, annoyed at the service, annoyed at everything. David's arm rests on the shared armrest between them. He's so focused on his notes, he doesn't notice Daniel staring at his arm with cold eyes. Daniel picks up his coffee cup. Hot. Steaming. He glances at David's arm again, then at David's face. A decision formed behind his eyes. A cruel, calculated decision. Without warning, Daniel tilts the cup. Hot coffee streams out, pouring directly onto David's lap, his arm, his precious interview folder. The scalding liquid soaks through his clothes. David jumps up with a cry of pain. The folder falls to the floor, paper scattering, ink bleeding across them. Passengers in nearby rows turn. Gasps fill the air. Someone 3 rows back pulls out their phone and starts recording. Daniel leans back in his seat, face twisted into a smirk. Watch where you put your arm, kid. David stands frozen, coffee dripping from his clothes, shock painted across his face. His interview folder ruined. His shirt destroyed. His skin burning. From the galley at the front of the cabin, flight attendant Ashley Martinez sees everything. Her eyes narrow. She sets down the drink tray she's holding and starts walking toward row 18. The cabin falls eerily quiet as Ashley approaches. Her footsteps are measured, calm, but there's steel in her spine. She stops beside Daniel's seat and looks down at him. When she speaks, her voice is quiet but carries an unmistakable authority. "Sir, I need you to come with me. Now." Daniel laughs, a harsh, mocking sound. He spreads his hands as if addressing an audience. "Do you know who I am?" Ashley's expression doesn't change. Her calm reply cuts through the tension like a knife. "I'm about to find out." What happened next on Flight 447 from Atlanta to New York would change 3 lives forever. But to understand why this moment mattered so much, why it couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug, you need to know who these people really were. Daniel Miller wasn't just any businessman. He owned one of Manhattan's largest real estate firms. His penthouse overlooked Central Park. His garage held 3 luxury cars. He was used to people doing exactly what he wanted, when he wanted it. David Thompson lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn with his mother, Maria. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night, serving at a diner during the day, so her son could have a better life than she did. David earned every grade through late nights at the library. He tutored younger kids for free on weekends. He saved every dollar from his part-time job at the local library so he could afford this flight. This wasn't just a trip to New York. This was his shot at Columbia University, his one chance to break the cycle. His mother's dream made real. And Ashley Martinez? She'd been a flight attendant for 8 years. She'd seen drunk passengers, angry passengers, and entitled passengers. She'd learned to stay calm, to de-escalate, to serve with a smile even when people treated her like she was invisible. But Ashley had also learned something else during those 8 years. Sometimes staying calm isn't enough. Sometimes you have to stand up, even when it's hard, even when it costs you. 3 people, 1 moment, everything about to change. Let's go back to the beginning of this day. Back to when none of them knew what was coming. That morning in Brooklyn, Maria Thompson stood in her tiny kitchen, packing a lunch for her son, even though he'd told her not to. "Baby, this is your chance," she said, pulling David into a hug that lasted just a little too long. "Make us proud. Your father will be so proud." David's father had died when David was 9, a construction accident. No insurance, no savings, just memories and bills. David blinked back tears as he picked up his carefully packed suitcase. Inside was 1 good shirt, 1 tie, his interview folder, and dreams bigger than that small Brooklyn apartment could hold. Meanwhile, across the city at a luxury Manhattan high-rise, Daniel Miller was already in a bad mood. His assistant had just informed him that the Chicago deal was falling apart. The investors were getting cold feet. He needed to be in New York today to save it, but his usual first-class seat wasn't available. The airline had put him in business class. Business class. Like he was some kind of common traveler. At the airport, Daniel argued with the gate agent. "Do you understand who I am? I fly this airline constantly. Get me upgraded." The agent, a young black woman, kept her professional smile. "I apologize, sir, but first class is completely full today. I can put you on the standby list." This is unacceptable. Daniel's voice carried across the terminal. Other passengers stared. "I want to speak to your manager." 20 minutes and one complaint later, Daniel boarded the plane, still angry, still entitled, still convinced the world owed him better. He found a seat in row 18, middle of the plane, surrounded by regular people. His jaw clenched. This was going to be a long flight. Before we continue this story, I need to ask you something. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Are you in New York? Los Angeles? Maybe somewhere across the ocean? We want to know. And if you believe everyone deserves respect no matter the color of their skin, no matter how much money they have, no matter where they're from, hit that like button right now. Because what happens next? It's going to test everything you believe about fairness and justice. Back on the plane, Ashley escorts Daniel toward the rear galley. He walks with confidence, certain he's about to get this flight attendant fired. Behind them, David sits alone in row 18. His hands tremble as he picks up the soggy remains of his interview folder. Coffee has bled through every page. His carefully prepared answers are now just smears of ink. Passengers whisper. Some look at David with pity. Others look away, uncomfortable. An elderly white woman in the window seat leans over. "Honey, are you okay?" "That was awful." David can't speak. His throat is tight. His eyes burn with tears he refuses to let fall. The woman reaches into her purse and pulls out napkins. She helps him blot the worst of the coffee from his shirt. "I saw what happened," she says quietly. "That man did that on purpose." David finally finds his voice. "My interview folder, everything I prepared. We'll figure something out," the woman says. But they both know there's no fixing this. David looks toward the back of the plane, where Ashley and Daniel have disappeared. What's happening back there? What's that flight attendant going to do? In that moment, sitting there soaked and humiliated and scared, David makes a choice. He straightens his shoulders, sets his jaw. "I won't let this stop me," he whispers. But he has no idea how much harder things are about to get. To really understand David Thompson, you need to see his life before that plane ride. Brooklyn, a neighborhood where the rent keeps going up, but the opportunities don't. David lived on the 4th floor of a walk-up building. No elevator, peeling paint in the hallways. But inside their small apartment, Maria Thompson kept everything spotless. She had to. Cleaning was what she did for a living. 5 nights a week, Maria took the subway to Manhattan. She cleaned office buildings from midnight to 6 in the morning. She scrubbed toilets used by people who made more in an hour than she made in a week. Then she'd come home, change clothes, and head to her day job at Rose's Diner. Lunch shift, standing for 6 hours straight, smiling at customers, bringing them food, clearing their plates. She did this so David could focus on school, so he wouldn't have to work full-time like she had at his age, so he could be the one who breaks free. And David, he understood the sacrifice. He saw his mother's swollen feet. When she came home, he heard her crying in the bathroom when she thought he was asleep. So David studied every single day. He got straight A's not because school came easy, but because he refused to waste his mother's sacrifice. He tutored younger kids at the community center every Saturday. He volunteered at the library where he also worked part-time, shelving books for $8 an hour. When other kids his age were hanging out, playing basketball, going to parties, David was in his room studying, preparing, building the future his mother dreamed about. The letter from Columbia came in March, an invitation to interview for their summer program, a program that could lead to a full scholarship if he impressed them. Maria cried when she read it. Happy tears this time. Your father wanted this for you, she said, holding David's face in her hands. He used to say, our boy is going to be something special. He knew, baby. He knew. David saved for 3 months to afford the flight. Every tip from the library. Every dollar he could spare. He bought the cheapest ticket available, middle seat, no refund, no changes. It didn't matter. He was going to Columbia. He was going to nail this interview. He was going to make his mom proud. He had no idea that a man named Daniel Miller would try to destroy all of that with a cup of coffee. Daniel Miller grew up with everything David didn't have. His father owned a construction company. His mother belonged to country clubs. Daniel went to private schools where his classmates' parents were lawyers, doctors, executives. He learned early that the world had 2 types of people, those who mattered and those who served. By 45, Daniel had built his own empire. Miller Properties owned 17 buildings in Manhattan. He made deals worth millions. His office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he believed he owned. But success hadn't made Daniel kind. It had made him cruel. In his company, people walked on eggshells. His assistants rarely lasted more than 6 months. He was known for yelling, for humiliating people in meetings, for taking credit and assigning blame. 3 weeks before Flight 447, Daniel had a meeting with his development team. A young black analyst named Marcus presented an idea for affordable housing units in one of their buildings. We could partner with the city, Marcus said. It would be good publicity and help families who... Daniel cut him off. I didn't ask for your opinion on what's good. I asked for ideas that make money. But, sir, the tax incentives alone would. Are you arguing with me? Daniel's voice went cold. Because I can find 100 people who want your job. People who understand that I don't pay you to be a social worker. Marcus sat down, face burning with shame. The room stayed silent. After the meeting, Daniel's longtime assistant, Carol, tried to talk to him. That was harsh, Daniel. Marcus is one of our best analysts. He'll get over it, Daniel said, not looking up from his phone. Or he won't. Either way, I don't care. This was who Daniel Miller was. Someone who believed power meant never having to care, never having to apologize, never having to see people like Marcus or David as fully human. When his Chicago deal started falling apart, Daniel didn't reflect. He didn't think about whether his business practices had finally caught up with him. He just got angry. He needed to be in New York. He needed that first-class seat he'd been promised. He needed everyone to recognize who he was and treat him accordingly. So when the gate agent couldn't upgrade him, when he had to sit in the middle of the plane surrounded by ordinary people, his anger grew. And when a black teenager dared to use the armrest Daniel considered his own property, Daniel saw an opportunity, a chance to remind someone of their place, a chance to feel powerful again. He picked up that coffee cup and made a choice that would destroy everything he'd built. Ashley Martinez dreamed of flying since she was a little girl. Not as a pilot, though she wanted that too. As someone who helped people. Someone who made their journey better, safer, kinder. Her parents had immigrated from Mexico before she was born. They worked in restaurants. Her father as a line cook, her mother as a server. Ashley grew up watching them deal with rude customers, unfair managers, impossible expectations. Keep your head up, her mother always said. Do your job with pride. And never, ever let anyone make you feel small. Ashley became a flight attendant at 24. She loved it immediately. Loved to travel. Loved meeting people from everywhere. Loved solving problems. But she also saw things that troubled her. She saw how some passengers treated flight attendants like servants. How they snapped their fingers, made demands, complained about things that weren't anyone's fault. She saw how some passengers got away with terrible behavior. How rich, powerful people could be rude, aggressive, even threatening, and face no consequences. During her training, one instructor said something Ashley never forgot. Your job is to keep everyone safe. And sometimes that means standing up to bullies, even when it's scary, even when they threaten your job. Because if you don't, who will? Over 8 years, Ashley built a reputation. She was professional, calm under pressure, excellent at de-escalation. She remembered regular passengers' names, their drink preferences, their stories. But she also had a personnel file, filled with commendations for passenger advocacy. Like the time she reported a man who was harassing a young woman. He complained to corporate, threatened to sue. But Ashley stood firm, and eventually they banned him. Like the time she refused to serve alcohol to a passenger who was already drunk and becoming aggressive. He wrote a nasty review. She didn't care. Ashley had seen Daniel Miller before. Twice, actually. Both times he'd been rude to her colleagues. Both times he complained about something ridiculous. Both times corporate had apologized to him and given him vouchers. So when Ashley saw Daniel pour that coffee on David, when she saw that deliberate tilt of the cup, that cruel smirk, something inside her snapped, not into anger, into clarity. This man had gotten away with being terrible for too long. He thought his money made him untouchable. He thought no one would stand up to him. He was wrong. As Ashley walked toward row 18, she thought about her mother's words. Never let anyone make you feel small. But she also thought about David, a kid, sitting there humiliated, his dreams literally dripping onto the floor. Someone had to stand up. Someone had to say no. Someone had to draw a line. Today on Flight 447, that someone was Ashley Martinez. And Daniel Miller was about to learn that money can't buy you everything. It can't buy you decency. It can't buy you immunity from consequences. It can't buy your way out of being seen for exactly what you are. Let's rewind to boarding. Before the coffee, before everything exploded, David found his seat, row 18, seat B, middle seat, the spot nobody wants. He squeezed past a businessman already seated in the aisle, apologizing 3 times even though he hadn't done anything wrong. That was David, polite, careful, always aware he might be judged more harshly than others. He placed his backpack under the seat in front of him, put his interview folder on his lap, took a deep breath. The woman in the window seat smiled at him. First time flying alone? Is it that obvious? David smiled back. You'll do fine, sweetheart. Where you headed? Columbia University. I have an interview. Oh, how wonderful. You must be so smart. David felt his shoulders relax slightly. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Then Daniel Miller boarded. He came down the aisle like he owned it, his carry-on bag swinging carelessly. When he reached row 18, he shoved his bag into the overhead compartment without looking. The bag hit David's head. David winced but said nothing. Daniel didn't apologize, didn't even glance at David, just dropped into the aisle seat and immediately pulled out his phone. Ashley happened to be nearby, helping an older passenger with their luggage. Daniel snapped his fingers in her direction. Excuse me, why is coach so crowded today? Ashley turned, keeping her professional smile in place. I can help you find your seat, sir. I found my seat, Daniel said coldly. I'm asking why I'm in this seat, instead of first class where I should be. I understand your frustration, sir. First class was fully booked today, but you're welcome in business class, and we'll make sure you're comfortable. Daniel muttered something under his breath. Ashley caught the word ridiculous and incompetent. She kept smiling. She'd dealt with worse. But she made a mental note. This passenger would need watching. The plane taxied toward the runway. Daniel kept his phone out, talking loudly despite repeated announcements that all devices should be in airplane mode. I don't care what Henderson says. Daniel barked into his phone. Tell him if he can't close by Friday, I'm walking. There are 10 other investors who'd kill for this deal. Ashley approached gently. Sir, I'm sorry, but I'll need you to end your call. We're preparing for takeoff. Daniel held up one finger. Wait, and continued talking. Sir, Ashley said, firmer this time. Daniel finally hung up and glared at her. Happy now. Thank you for your cooperation, Ashley said, moving on. David had been watching this exchange from the corner of his eye. He'd seen men like Daniel before. Men who thought rules were suggestions. Men who treated people in service jobs like furniture. His mother dealt with men like this every day at the diner. David had learned to stay quiet around them, to not draw attention, to survive by being invisible. So when the plane leveled off and the seatbelt sign turned off, David was careful. He took out his interview folder slowly. He kept his elbows tucked close to his body. He tried to take up as little space as possible, but he needed the armrest to write some notes. Just for a minute, he rested his arm there lightly, ready to move it if Daniel objected. The drink cart came by. Daniel ordered a premium vodka. Neat. When Ashley brought it, he didn't say thank you. David ordered water. Please, he added. And thank you. Ashley smiled at him. A real smile this time, not the professional one. Of course, honey. Let me know if you need anything else. Daniel noticed the interaction. His face hardened. Later, Daniel got up to use the restroom. As he walked past David, he made a face. Crowded back here, he said, loud enough for several rows to hear. When he returned, David was writing on his interview notes. Daniel stopped beside his seat, looming over David. Move your stuff. David quickly pulled his folder onto his lap. Sorry. Daniel sat down heavily, deliberately bumping David's shoulder. David said nothing. He just focused on his notes, trying to disappear. But inside, his heart pounded. He recognized this feeling. This was what his mother had warned him about. Some people, she'd said, they'll try to make you feel small. Don't let them. But also, baby, pick your battles. Some fights aren't worth it. Was this a fight worth picking? David didn't know. He just wanted to get to New York, to his interview, to his future. He had no idea the fight was about to pick him. From her position in the galley, Ashley watched row 18. She'd been a flight attendant long enough to recognize tension. Body language told stories. The set of shoulders, the clench of a jaw, the way someone held themselves rigid to avoid contact with the person next to them. She saw how David kept making himself smaller, how he apologized for things that weren't his fault, how he flinched slightly whenever Daniel moved. She also saw how Daniel kept finding reasons to invade David's space, how his expressions turned sour whenever he looked at the teenager, how he seemed to be building towards something. Ashley made another mental note. She positioned herself where she could see row 18 clearly. The elderly woman in the window seat seemed to sense the tension too. She leaned toward David. College interview, you said? That's wonderful. What do you want to study? David's face lit up, the first genuine smile Ashley had seen from him all flight. Engineering. I want to design buildings that use less energy. Maybe help solve climate problems. Oh, how wonderful. My grandson studies environmental science. You young people give me hope. Affirmative action probably, Daniel muttered. The words hung in the air like poison. David's smile vanished. His hands clenched the armrest, the shared armrest his arm had been resting on. The elderly woman's eyes went wide. Excuse me? Daniel didn't repeat himself. He just pulled out his phone again, dismissing them both. David stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his breathing careful, everything in him screaming, but his mouth staying closed. Because what could he say? If he confronted Daniel, he'd be labeled aggressive, angry, exactly the stereotype he'd spent his life fighting against. So he stayed quiet, swallowed the rage, focused on his notes. But his hand stayed on that armrest, because it was shared, because he had a right to it. Because sometimes taking up the space you're entitled to is its own form of resistance. Ashley saw it all. She saw David's restraint, saw the racist comment register, saw how David chose silence over confrontation. She also saw Daniel notice David's hand on the armrest, saw something dark flicker across Daniel's face. The tension in that row thickened. Other passengers felt it too. They shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Something was about to break. Ashley stepped closer, ready to intervene if needed, but she couldn't prevent what happened next. Daniel pressed the call button. Ashley approached. How can I help you, sir? Coffee. Black. Hot. Of course. Ashley went to prepare it, a strange unease settling in her stomach. She brought the coffee in a proper ceramic cup, regulation temperature, properly secured on a small tray. Here you go, sir. Daniel took it without acknowledgement. David was reviewing his notes one more time. His arm rested naturally on the armrest between his seat and Daniel's. Not aggressively. Not claiming more than his share. Just there. Daniel lifted the coffee cup, took a sip, set it down. Then he looked at David's arm on the armrest, looked at David's face, focused on his papers. Unaware, Daniel picked up the cup again. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds will replay in dozens of videos, across millions of screens, for months to come. Daniel tilted the cup. Not a spill, not an accident. A deliberate pour. Hot coffee streamed out, splashing directly onto David's lap, soaking his arm, spreading across his interview folder. David jumped up a cry. The hot liquid burned through his clothes, scalding his skin. His folder tumbled to the floor, paper scattering, ink bleeding into coffee-stained paper. Passengers in nearby rows turned. Someone gasped. Another said, "Oh my God!" 3 rows back, a passenger named Jennifer Lee pulled out her phone and started recording. David stood in the aisle, coffee dripping from his clothes, his hands shaking as he stared at the ruined folder on the floor. Daniel leaned back in his seat, arms spread in mock innocence. But there was a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. That cruel satisfaction of someone who just put someone else in their place. "Watch where you put your arm, kid," Daniel said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. David finally found his voice. It came out shaking, higher than normal. You poured that on me. On purpose. He bumped me," Daniel said, even louder now, addressing the passengers around him like they were a jury. "I'm a victim here. The kid knocked my arm and I spilled my coffee. That's not true." David's voice cracked. "You poured it on me." A man across the aisle, white 50s business suit, leaned forward. "I saw it. The kid bumped him." David's eyes went wide. "No, I didn't. I was just sitting here." Daniel stood now, getting in David's face. "Are you calling me a liar? You assaulted me, damaged my expensive pants, and now you're trying to blame me? I should sue you." The elderly woman in the window seat struggled to her feet. "That is not what happened. This man poured his coffee on this young man deliberately." "Stay out of this, ma'am," the business-suited passenger said. "You probably couldn't see from the window seat." "I saw perfectly well," she insisted. The cabin erupted in chaos. Some passengers defended Daniel. Others looked uncertain. A few pulled out their phones. David stood there, soaked, shaking, outnumbered. Everything he'd worked for, his interview clothes, his carefully prepared notes, his confidence, destroyed. He tried to speak again, but nothing came out. The tears he'd been fighting started to well up. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with achievement, not with success, but with humiliation at 30,000 feet, surrounded by strangers who either hated him or pitted him or simply didn't want to get involved. Then Ashley arrived. Ashley moved through the chaos like a ship through rough water. Calm, steady, purposeful. "Sir," she said, looking directly at Daniel, "I need you to come with me. Now." Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. "I'm not going anywhere. Do you know who I am? I'm Daniel Miller. I own Miller Properties in Manhattan. I fly this airline 50 times a year. And I will have your job for this harassment." Ashley's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. "Sir, I witnessed what occurred. I saw you deliberately pour your beverage on this passenger. As a flight attendant, I have authority over all passengers during this flight. Please follow me to the galley. Now." "I'm not following you anywhere. I'm the victim. This kid assaulted me." Ashley pulled out her phone, not to record, but to call the cockpit. "Captain, this is Martinez. I have a passenger who assaulted a minor and is now refusing to comply with crew instructions. I'm documenting this as a Level 3 incident." The cabin went silent. Level 3 meant law enforcement would meet the plane. Daniel's confidence flickered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. Fine. I'll come with you, but you're making the biggest mistake of your career. I'll not only get you fired, I'll make sure you never work in aviation again. And that kid, I'll have him arrested for assault." He turned to the business-suited passenger. "You saw it, right? You'll be my witness?" The man nodded. "Absolutely." Daniel smiled coldly at David. Your word against mine, kid. And we both know whose word matters more. Ashley stepped between them. Sir, now. As Daniel followed Ashley toward the rear galley, he called back to David. Enjoy explaining to the police why you assaulted a businessman. I hope your little college interview was worth it. David stood frozen in the aisle, passengers staring at him from every direction. The elderly woman touched his arm gently. Sit down, honey. Let me help you clean up. But David couldn't move, couldn't think. His future, everything, was dissolving like ink in coffee. Eventually, David sat. The elderly woman, she'd introduced herself as Margaretchen, helped blot the worst of the coffee from his clothes with napkins. But they both knew it was hopeless. His shirt was destroyed, his pants stained beyond repair, and his interview folder. David picked up the scattered papers. They were soaked. His carefully typed answers were now just smears of black and brown. 3 months of preparation gone. Other passengers had returned to their own business, uncomfortable with the drama. A few still whispered and glanced over. One man, 3 rows back, the one who'd been recording, caught David's eye and nodded slightly, as if to say, I got it. I saw what really happened. But David barely registered it. He was too busy fighting back tears. Margaret whispered, I saw everything, honey. What that man did was wrong. Criminal. And I will testify to that if needed. It won't matter, David said quietly. No one's going to believe me over him. Look at him. Look at me. Everyone already knows how this ends. Don't say that. But David knew. He'd known his whole life. The system wasn't built for people who looked like him. It was built for people like Daniel Miller. Still, as he sat there in his ruined clothes, something hard formed in his chest. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, more determined. He looked at his coffee-stained folder, at his destroyed interview outfit, at the passengers who defended his attacker. And David Thompson made a promise to himself. I won't let this stop me, he whispered. He didn't know if he believed it yet, but he needed to say it out loud, needed to hear himself claim that power, even if he didn't feel it. Because if he gave up now, Daniel Miller won. And people like Daniel Miller had been winning for too long. David took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, set his jaw. Whatever happened next, he would face it. He would survive it. He would find a way to turn this moment of humiliation into something that mattered. He had to. If you've ever seen something like this happen, if you've ever witnessed someone being treated unfairly just because of who they are, hit that like button right now and tell us in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet? Would you have spoken up? Would you have recorded what happened? Because what happens next depends on people making those choices. People deciding whether to look away or to stand up. So comment below. Tell us your story. Tell us your answer. Because this story isn't just about David, Daniel, and Ashley. It's about all of us. Jennifer Lee stared at her phone screen. She'd recorded the whole thing. The coffee pour, Daniel's smirk, David's cry of pain, the argument afterward. Her thumb hovered over the upload button. She thought about staying out of it. She didn't know these people. This wasn't her problem. But then she thought about her own son, 16 years old, black, smart, full of dreams. She thought about every time she'd worried about him, every time she'd told him to be careful, to stay calm, to not give anyone a reason to see him as a threat. She thought about how this could have been her son in that seat, coffee-soaked and humiliated, while strangers defended his attacker. Jennifer hit upload. White businessman pours coffee on black teen on Flight 447. This is disgusting. She tagged it with the airline's name and hit post. Within 20 minutes, the video had 500 views. Within an hour, 50,000. By the time the plane landed in New York 2 hours later, the video had been viewed 2 million times. Twitter exploded. Instagram stories spread it. TikTok users duetted it with reactions. News sites embedded it. The hashtag started trending. Hashtag Flight 447, hashtag Justice for David, hashtag Daniel Miller is over. The comments poured in. This is absolutely disgusting. That poor kid. We need to find out who this businessman is and make sure he faces consequences. The way he smirked after doing it. He knew exactly what he was doing. Anyone defending this man needs to check themselves. But other comments appeared too. We don't see the full context. Maybe the kid did bump him. Why is everyone assuming the worst about the businessman? This is trial by social media. Innocent until proven guilty. There are two sides to every story. The internet divided itself into camps, like it always does. Team David, Team Daniel, and those who claim to need more information, while somehow finding reasons to defend Daniel anyway. The video continued spreading. Cross-posted, screen-recorded, downloaded and re-uploaded. Flight 447 was still in the air when it became the most talked-about flight in America. The plane touched down at LaGuardia Airport. Daniel powered on his phone, confident this minor inconvenience was over. His phone immediately started buzzing. Texts, calls, notifications flooding in so fast his phone froze for a moment. His assistant was calling. His lawyer, his business partner, his PR firm. All at once, Daniel answered his assistant first. What's going on? Daniel, there's a video. From the flight. It's everywhere. Twitter, news sites, everywhere. You need to see this. Daniel's stomach dropped. He opened Twitter. The first 3 posts on his feed were the video. Him pouring coffee on David. That moment frozen in time, undeniable. The comments beneath made his blood run cold. Daniel Miller, owner of Miller Properties, caught on camera assaulting a black teenager. This man needs to be arrested. Boycott Miller Properties. This is who they are. His phone rang again. His lawyer, Bernard. Daniel, do not talk to anyone. Do not post anything. Do not. That video is taken out of context. Daniel shouted into phone, loud enough that other passengers turned to stare. That kid assaulted me. I'm the victim here. Daniel, I'm telling you as your lawyer, stay quiet until we figure out our strategy. But Daniel couldn't stay quiet. Staying quiet felt like admitting guilt. He was Daniel Miller. He didn't back down. He didn't apologize. He attacked. He opened his Twitter account, verified, 70,000 followers, and started typing. I was assaulted by an aggressive passenger on my flight today. The flight attendant was completely unprofessional and biased. I am pursuing legal action against both the passenger and the airline. There are always two sides to the story. Hashtag false accusations, hashtag due process. He hit post. The responses came instantly, hundreds per minute. You're really trying to play victim after we all watched you assault that kid? Aggressive passenger equals black teenager minding his own business. We see you. The privilege is astounding. Your company is done. We're canceling every contract. Daniel's hands shook as he read them. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to be the powerful one, the one in control. His PR firm called. Daniel, we need you to delete that tweet immediately and issue an apology. An apology? For what? I didn't do anything wrong. The video doesn't show him bumping me. It's edited to make me look bad. Daniel, please. We're trying to save your reputation here. My reputation is fine, Daniel said, even as he watched his follower count start to drop. Even as he saw major clients mentioning his company name with words like disgusted and unacceptable. He hung up and called his business partner, James. James, I need you to release a statement supporting me. Tell them this is all lies, that I'm the victim of... Daniel, the board had an emergency call. We're voting tomorrow on whether to force you out. The words hit like ice water. Force me out? Of my own company. The company's company now, Daniel. You sold us 40%. We have the votes if we need them. And after today, we might need them. Daniel hung up, sat in his seat as other passengers filed past, some glaring at him, recognizing him from the video. This couldn't be happening. It was just a kid, just a moment, just coffee. How had his entire world started crumbling in 2 hours? David walked through LaGuardia Airport, looking like a disaster. His shirt was stiff with dried coffee, stained brown across the front. His pants were ruined. His interview folder was a soggy mess in his hands. He found a bathroom and locked himself in a stall. Finally, he let himself cry. Big, silent sobs that shook his whole body. For his ruined clothes. For his destroyed preparation. For the humiliation. For the unfairness of it all. His interview was in 4 hours. Columbia University. His one shot. He pulled out his phone to call his mom, then stopped. She'd be at work. He couldn't interrupt her shift. Couldn't worry her. Instead, he opened his banking app. He had $43 left. The flight had taken most of his savings. He left the bathroom and found an airport shop. The cheapest dress shirt they had cost $35. It was polyester, too big, and definitely not interview appropriate. But it was all he could afford. He bought it along with a small pack of wet wipes. $8 left. In the bathroom again, David did his best to clean up. He washed his face, used the wet wipes on his arms where the coffee had burned. The skin was red, painful. He changed into the new shirt. He looked in the mirror. The shirt hung on him awkwardly. His eyes were red from crying. He looked exhausted, defeated. This was not how you showed up to a Columbia interview. David tried to salvage his interview notes, but the pages were stuck together. The ink bled beyond reading. 3 months of preparation, gone. He'd have to answer from memory. Hope his brain worked despite the trauma. Hope the interviewers didn't notice how shaken he was. Hope. That's all he had left. David took the subway to Columbia's campus. He was 40 minutes late because he'd spent so long trying to clean up. The admissions building was beautiful, old brick, ivy covered. Exactly what David had dreamed about. Walking toward in his cheap shirt and coffee-stained pants. He felt like an imposter. He found the right office. Gave his name to the receptionist. She looked him up and down, taking in his disheveled appearance. "You're late." "I know. I'm sorry. Something happened on my flight, and Professor Harrison is with another candidate right now. Please wait." David sat in the waiting area. Around him were other kids interviewing, all put together, confident, prepared. Their nice clothes, their leather portfolio folders, their calm expressions. He felt like he didn't belong. When Professor Harrison finally called him in, the man's expression was already skeptical. "Mr. Thompson, you're 40 minutes late." "I apologize, sir. There was an incident on my flight that—" "We've heard every excuse, Mr. Thompson. Punctuality matters. Let's not waste more time. Tell me why you want to attend Columbia." David opened his mouth. The answer he'd prepared and practiced for months was on coffee-stained paper in his backpack. He tried to remember it, but his mind was blank. All he could think about was Daniel's smirk, the hot coffee, the passengers who defended his attacker. I want to study engineering because—" The words wouldn't come. Professor Harrison waited, his pen poised over his notes. David's one chance. Slipping away. While David struggled through his interview, Ashley Martinez sat in the flight attendant break room at LaGuardia, filling out an incident report. Her supervisor, Janet Morris, sat across from her, arms crossed. "Walk me through exactly what you saw," Janet said. Ashley described it calmly, professionally. The coffee pour, Daniel's deliberate action, David's reaction, the confrontation afterward. "And you're certain it was deliberate?" "Completely certain. I was watching from the galley. I saw him look at the passenger's arm, look at his face, then pour the coffee directly onto him. It was assault." Janet sighed heavily. "Ashley, this video is everywhere. Corporate is freaking out. We're getting thousands of calls, tweets, threats of boycotts. The media is calling every 10 minutes. Then they'll be happy to know I filed a proper report documenting what happened. Daniel Miller is threatening to sue. He says you harassed him, that you were biased, that you made the situation worse." Ashley met Janet's eyes steadily. "I did my job. I protected a minor passenger who was assaulted. I documented everything according to protocol. If Mr. Miller wants to sue me for that, he's welcome to try. You put deliberate assault in your report. That's a serious accusation. It's an accurate description of what I witnessed." Janet rubbed her temples. "Corporate wants to handle this carefully. They're talking about suspending you pending investigation. Standard procedure. Ashley's jaw tightened. Suspending me? For protecting a passenger? It's not a punishment. It's just, they need to investigate thoroughly. You understand? What I understand is that Daniel Miller has complained about crew members before. Multiple times. Always staff of color. And each time, corporate sided with him because he spends money with us. But this time there's video evidence. So suddenly everyone cares about investigating thoroughly. Ashley, how long does this investigation take? Could be a few weeks. Unpaid. Janet looked uncomfortable. That's up to corporate. Ashley stood. I want to talk to the union representative. Today. I think that's wise, Janet said quietly. As Ashley left the break room, she pulled out her phone. The video was everywhere. Millions of views now. Comment arguing about what really happened, despite the evidence being crystal clear. She scrolled through responses. Mixed reactions. Some praised her for standing up. Others called her biased. Said she made assumptions, claimed she escalated the situation. But one comment caught her eye, from a user named at Reality Check 2024. That flight attendant is a hero. She saw something wrong, and she acted. We need more people like her. Ashley screenshot it. Not because she needed validation, but because she knew hard days were coming. And sometimes you need to remember that standing up for what's right is worth it, even when it costs you. She opened her contacts and called the Flight Attendants Union. This is Ashley Martinez. I need to speak with someone about a passenger assault incident, and I need protection from retaliation. We've been waiting for your call, the representative said. We've seen the video. We're ready to stand with you. For the first time since the flight landed, Ashley felt her shoulders relax slightly. She wasn't alone in this fight. David returned home to Brooklyn that evening, defeated. The interview had been a disaster. He'd stumbled through answers, couldn't articulate his thoughts, and Professor Harrison had ended things 20 minutes early with polite but cold. We'll be in touch. They wouldn't be in touch. David knew it. His mother was still at work. Her evening shift at the diner. David was grateful. He couldn't face her yet. Couldn't tell her how badly everything had gone. He sat on his bed, still in the cheap airport shirt, and finally allowed himself to check his phone. 53 missed calls. 217 text messages. His social media notifications were maxed out. His hands shook as he opened Twitter. The video was everywhere. Him getting coffee poured on him, played over and over. His face, his shock, his pain, shared millions of times. People were dissecting every frame, arguing about it, using his humiliation as content. David felt sick, but then he started reading some of the comments. This broke my heart. That kid was just trying to get to an interview. I'm a teacher. I see kids like David every day, working so hard, fighting for opportunities. This is exactly the kind of injustice they face. Someone find this kid and help him. Set up a fund. Get him support. David's mom came home 3 hours later. She burst through the door, still in her diner uniform, phone in hand. Baby? Baby, what happened? I saw. Everyone at work was showing me. David, what happened? David told her everything. The coffee, the interview, the destruction of his preparation. Maria held her son while he cried for the second time that day. Mama, I messed up the interview. Columbia's not going to accept me. And now everyone in the world has seen me get humiliated. My face is everywhere. Maria pulled back, holding David's face in her hands. Listen to me. What happened to you is evil. That man tried to break you. But baby, you're not broken. You're here. You're strong. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling it. It's about what you do next. Maria stood and went to David's desk. She pulled out his school project from last semester, a research paper on racial discrimination in public spaces. David had spent months on it, interviewing people, collecting statistics, documenting patterns. You wrote about this. Maria said, you studied it, and now you've lived it. Baby, you have a voice now. Millions of people are listening. The question is, what are you going to say? David looked at his research. graphs showing discrimination rates, interviews with people who'd experienced exactly what he'd experienced, statistics that prove his story wasn't isolated. It was systemic. Something shifted in him, a transformation from victim to something else, someone with purpose. I want to tell my story, David said slowly. The real story, not just the video. All of it. Why it matters. Why it keeps happening. Maria smiled through tears. Then let's figure out how. That night, David didn't sleep. Instead, he wrote about growing up black in America, about his father's death and his mother's sacrifice, about working twice as hard for half the recognition, about the weight of representing your entire race every time you enter a space. He wrote about Daniel Miller, not with rage, but with clarity, about how men like Daniel see people like David as less than human, about how systems protect the Daniels while criminalizing the Davids. He wrote about justice, real justice, not revenge, not destruction, but accountability, change, a world where black kids could travel without fear, where hard work actually led to opportunity, where being excellent wasn't just a survival strategy. By sunrise, David had written 4,000 words, raw, honest, powerful. His mother read it over breakfast. She cried again, but different tears this time. "This is it," she said. "This is your voice. Now we find people who'll help you share it." Ashley met with a union representative, Marcus Rivera, at a coffee shop in Queens. "Tell me everything," Marcus said. "Record her running with her permission." Ashley walked him through the flight. Her observations of Daniel's behavior, the deliberate coffee pour, her intervention, the threats Daniel made. "And this isn't the first time you've dealt with Daniel Miller?" Marcus asked. "No, he's flown with us before. Twice that I know of. Both times he was rude to crew members. Both times crew members of color. Both times he complained to corporate about poor service. Both times corporate gave him vouchers and apologies." Marcus nodded, taking notes. "How many complaints total against Daniel Miller?" "I don't have access to the full records, but I've heard from other crew members. He's got a reputation. We all know to be careful around him because he'll weaponize any interaction. And corporate knows this. They have to. Multiple crew members have filed reports, but he's a frequent flyer. He spends money, so they keep accommodating him." Marcus leaned back. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to request Daniel Miller's complete complaint history from the airline under the union agreement. We have a right to see any passenger complaints that led to crew discipline or investigation. You think there are more? I think men like Daniel Miller don't suddenly become who they are. I think there's a pattern, and patterns can be evidence." Marcus pulled out his laptop and showed Ashley a file. "I've been doing research since I saw the video. Daniel Miller owns Miller Properties in Manhattan. But 3 years ago, his company was sued for housing discrimination. They settled out of court, sealed the records. 2 years ago, a former employee filed a discrimination complaint with the EOC. Also settled, also sealed." Ashley's eyes widened. "So this isn't just about one flight. This is about who he is. And Ashley, here's the thing. Your report might be the first time someone's documented his behavior in a way that can't be buried. The video corroborates everything you wrote. You gave that kid's family evidence." "David," Ashley said. "His name is David Thompson." "David," Marcus repeated. "Right. Have you been in contact with the family?" "No. I wasn't sure if that was appropriate. It might be helpful. They're probably feeling alone right now. And knowing someone in authority saw what happened, documented it, stood up for their son, that matters." Marcus slid a business card across the table. "This is Elena Rodriguez. She's a civil rights attorney here in New York. She's very good, and she takes cases like this pro bono when she believes in them. I think she want to talk to both you and David's family." Ashley took the card. "You really think we can win this?" "I think you already are winning. You did the right thing. You protected someone who needed protecting. You filed an honest report despite knowing it might cost you. That's not just doing your job, Ashley. That's being a good person in a world that often punishes good people." Marcus stood. The union's backing you completely. If the airline tries to suspend you, we fight it. If Daniel Miller tries to sue, we provide legal support. You're not alone in this. As Ashley left the coffee shop, she felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. She pulled out her phone and texted Janet. I need David Thompson's contact information. His family should know there are people fighting for him. The response came quickly. I'll see what I can do. Margaret Chun hadn't stopped thinking about David since the flight landed. She was 78 years old. She'd been a civil rights attorney for 45 years before retiring. She'd marched with Dr. King. She'd argued cases before the Supreme Court. She'd seen every form of discrimination imaginable, and she'd watched it happen again on Flight 447. That evening, Margaret did what she'd always done when she saw injustice. She acted. She contacted an old colleague who still practiced law in New York. I need you to find a David Thompson. Black teenager, 17, lives in Brooklyn. Mother named Maria. He was on Flight 447 from Atlanta today. I need to talk to his family. It took 3 hours, but Margaret's network came through. They found a Maria Thompson who worked at Rose's Diner and had a son named David. Margaret showed up at the diner during Maria's shift. Maria Thompson? Maria looked up from wiping down a table. Yes? Do I know you? My name is Margaret Chun. I was on Flight 447 with your son today. I sat in the window seat next to him. Maria's professional smile vanished. You saw what happened? I saw everything. And I need to tell you something important. Your son did nothing wrong. That man assaulted him deliberately, and I will testify to that in any proceeding, legal, civil, whatever's needed. Maria's eyes filled with tears. You do that? I've been fighting these battles for 45 years. I'm not stopping now. Margaret slid into a booth and gestured for Maria to sit. Tell me what you need. Resources? Legal help? Media contacts? I have connections. I don't even know where to start, Maria admitted. David's devastated. His interview was today, and it went badly because he was so shaken up. His dream school, and that man destroyed it. Then we rebuild it, Margaret said firmly. First, David needs to tell his story properly. Not just a video, the full story. Who he is, what this means, why it matters. Second, he needs legal representation. I know people, good people who take cases like this because they believe in justice, not just money. Margaret pulled out her phone. I'm calling Elena Rodriguez right now. She's one of the best civil rights attorneys in New York. If she takes this case, David's not just fighting back. He's making a statement. We can't afford. Pro bono. Trust me, Elena will want this case. Margaret made the call right there in the diner. Explained the situation. Described what she'd witnessed. Vouched for the Thompson family. Can you meet tomorrow? Margaret asked. Excellent. I'll bring them to your office. She hung up and smiled at Maria. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Elena wants to meet you and David. Maria couldn't speak. She just reached across the table and squeezed Margaret's hand. Why are you doing this? Maria finally asked. You don't know us. Because I marched with Dr. King in 1963. Because I've spent my life fighting discrimination. Because every time I think we've made progress. Something like today remind me how much work is left. Margaret squeezed back. And because your son had the courage to sit there with dignity, while a cruel man tried to break him, that kind of courage deserves support. He doesn't feel courageous right now. They never do, Margaret said. That's why they need people like us to remind them. Comment Justice of David. Right now, if you believe calm power beats loud arrogance every time. Because here's the truth. Daniel Miller thought his money, his power, his privilege made him untouchable. He thought he could humiliate a black teenager and face zero consequences. He was wrong. Ashley stood up. Margaret stood up. Soon, you'll see who else stood up. But the question is, would you stand up? In your life, when you see something wrong, do you act or do you look away? Tell us in the comments. We want to know. Because change doesn't happen when one person acts. It happens when enough people decide that looking away isn't an option anymore. Daniel Miller didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in his penthouse with his legal team, plotting his counterattack. His lawyer, Bernard Walsh, laid out the strategy. We need to control the narrative. Right now, public opinion is against you. The video looks bad. The video is taken out of context. Daniel, I'm being honest with you. The optics are terrible, but we can fight this. First, we create doubt. Second, we attack credibility. Third, we flip the script. Bernard opened his laptop. I've had our team edit the video. Watch. He played a version that started just seconds before the coffee spill, cut to make it look like David's elbow moved suddenly, like maybe he did bump Daniel. It's not a lie, Bernard said. It's selective truth. Post this version. Say your legal team has enhanced footage showing the kid's elbow movement caused a spill. That's brilliant, Daniel said. His PR consultant, Patricia, chimed in. We also need to humanize you. Do an interview. Sympathetic outlet. Talk about how you're a victim of cancel culture. How one edited video is destroying your life and your business. What about the kid? Daniel asked. Patricia's eyes went cold. We dig. Everyone has something. Juvenile record, bad grades, disciplinary issues at school. We find it, we leak it quietly, we let the internet do the rest. And if he's clean, then we create ambiguity. Sources say. Friends claim. According to people familiar with the situation. You don't need proof. You just need enough smoke to make people question the fire. Daniel smiled for the first time in hours. Do it. Over the next 48 hours, Daniel's team launched a coordinated campaign. They released the edited video with the caption, Enhanced footage shows passengers' elbow movement moments before incident. Hashtag due process. Hashtag innocent until proven guilty. They leaked a false story to a right-wing blog. Sources close to the situation claim David Thompson has a history of disciplinary issues at school and may have staged the incident for attention. The blog ran it without verification. Other outlets picked it up. Suddenly, hashtag David Thompson Truth was trending alongside hashtag Justice for David. Daniel booked an interview with a Sympathetic News host known for defending wealthy men accused of misconduct. Mr. Miller, thank you for coming on. You've been through quite an ordeal. Thank you for having me. It's been a nightmare. One moment of being bumped by another passenger, and suddenly I'm being called a racist, losing business deals, getting death threats. This is cancel culture at its worst. Tell us what really happened. I was sitting in my seat, working, trying to enjoy a cup of coffee. The young man next to me, I have nothing against him personally. He moved suddenly and bumped my arm. The coffee spilled. It was an accident. I even said watch out to warn him. But the video is edited to make me look bad. My legal team has enhanced footage that shows his elbow movement. But that doesn't matter to the mob. They've already decided I'm guilty. And the flight attendant? She was clearly biased from the beginning. She saw a black passenger and a white passenger and made assumptions. She escalated a simple accident into an international incident. Honestly, I think I have grounds to sue her for defamation and discrimination. Discrimination against you? Absolutely. Reverse discrimination is real. People assume because I'm successful and white that I must be the villain. That's prejudice too. The interview aired. Daniel's supporters flooded the comments. Finally, someone saying it. This is exactly what's wrong with America. That kid is probably lying for attention. Daniel's company released a statement. Mr. Miller has been a pillar of the New York business community for 20 years. These false accusations are damaging his reputation and livelihood. We stand behind him completely. But cracks were already forming in that support. 3 major clients, including the Chicago investor, released statements. While we're withholding final judgment, we're pausing all projects with Miller Properties pending investigation. The company's stock continued to slide. And on social media, despite Daniel's propaganda campaign, the original video kept resurfacing. People kept watching it, kept seeing what really happened. The airline's corporate headquarters. The executive team held an emergency meeting. Gentlemen, ladies, we have a PR disaster, the CEO began. Flight 447 has been viewed 20 million times. We're facing boycott threats. The FAA is asking questions. We need a strategy. The General Counsel spoke up. Our liability here is significant. If the flight attendant's report is accurate, and the video suggests it is, then we had an assault on our aircraft. But if we acknowledge that too strongly, we open ourselves to a lawsuit from the Thompson family. What about Miller? Someone asked. He's threatening to sue us too. Let him. His case is weak. But the Thompson case, if they sue for inadequate protection of a minor passenger, that could cost us millions. The PR director leaned forward. I suggest we offer the Thompson family a settlement. Quietly, a significant amount of money in exchange for signing an NDA. This whole thing goes away. What about Ashley Martinez? We suspend her pending investigation. Standard procedure. It shows we're taking this seriously without actually admitting wrongdoing. But she filed a proper report. She did her job. I understand that, but we need to appear neutral. We investigate, we follow protocol, and in a few weeks when this dies down, we quietly reinstate her with back pay. The CEO nodded. Make it happen. Contact the Thompson family today and get Ashley Martinez suspended immediately. That afternoon, a lawyer from the airline called Maria Thompson. Ms. Thompson, I'm calling on behalf of the airline regarding the incident involving your son. Maria's heart raced. Yes. We want to express our deepest apologies for what David experienced. No passenger should ever feel unsafe or unwelcome on our aircraft. Thank you, but we'd like to offer a settlement. $250,000. In exchange, we need you and David to sign a non-disclosure agreement. No more public statements about the incident. No lawsuit. The matter ends here. Maria's breath caught. $250,000. That was more money than she'd see in 5 years of working 2 jobs. That was David's college tuition. That was security, safety, everything they needed. I need to talk to my son. Of course. But Miss Thompson, I want to be clear. This offer is time sensitive. If this goes public, if lawyers get involved, our position changes. This is your best opportunity for a positive outcome. Maria hung up, hand shaking. That evening, she sat David down and told him about the offer. That's so much money, Mama, David said. That's college. That's everything. I know, baby. But if we take it, we have to stay quiet. We can't tell anyone what really happened. We can't fight back. Maria looked at her son, saw the conflict in his eyes. The temptation of financial security versus the hunger for justice. What do you want to do? She asked. David was quiet for a long moment. Then, Mama, you've worked 2 jobs my whole life, so I could have opportunities. You've sacrificed everything. If I take this money and stay quiet, what message does that send? That my dignity has a price? That people like Daniel Miller can buy their way out of consequences? Baby, I'm not sure we can win if we fight. These people have power. So did the people Dr. King fought. So did the people Margaret Chin fought. They had all the power. But someone stood up anyway. David took his mother's hands. This isn't about money anymore. It's about what's right. And Mama, you raised me to do what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Maria pulled her son into a hug, crying again, proud and terrified at the same time. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we fight. She called the airline lawyer back. Thank you for your offer, but we decline. My son deserves better than hush money. The next day, the airline suspended Ashley Martinez, pending investigation into the handling of the Flight 447 incident. The news spread immediately. Ashley's union released a statement. This suspension is retaliation against a crew member who properly documented a passenger assault. We will fight this decision with every resource available. But the damage was done. Ashley was home, unpaid, while the airline investigated whether she'd done anything wrong by protecting a teenager. The internet war intensified. Hashtag Team David and hashtag Team Daniel became tribal identities. People who'd never met either person fought viciously in comment sections. David started receiving messages. Some were supportive. You're brave. We stand with you. Don't give up. But others were vicious. You're just trying to get famous. You probably did bump him. Race-baiting scammer. Then came the death threats. You've ruined an innocent man's life. Watch your back. Ashley received them too. Biased flight attendant. You deserve to lose your job and worse. David's school friends treated him differently. Some were supportive. Others avoided him. Controversy wasn't something they wanted to be associated with. At school, whispers followed him. That's the kid from the video. My dad says he's lying. I feel bad for him, but I don't want to get involved. 2 weeks after the incident, David received an email from Columbia University. Dear Mr. Thompson, thank you for interviewing with us. After careful consideration, we have decided not to offer you a position in our summer program at this time. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. No explanation, no feedback, just rejection. David stared at the email, feeling the last piece of his dream crumble. He sat on his bed, Columbia rejection in hand, viral video playing in his mind, threats filling his phone. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet, he whispered to himself. Maybe they were right. Maybe I can't win this. For the first time since the flight, David Thompson truly doubted whether fighting back was worth it. Margaret Chin showed up at the Thompson apartment unannounced the next evening. Maria answered the door. Margaret, we weren't expecting. I know. I came because I know what this feels like. The doubt, the second guessing. Where's David? David was in his room, but he came out when he heard Margaret's voice. Margaret took one look at his face and knew, you're thinking about giving up. David couldn't lie to her. I didn't get into Columbia. People are sending me death threats. My mom could lose her job for being connected to this. Ashley got suspended. All this damage, and for what? Daniel Miller is still rich, still free. Nothing's changed. Margaret sat down on the couch and patted the seat next to her. Sit, both of you. I'm going to tell you something I learned 55 years ago. She pulled out her phone and showed them a photo. Young Margaret, maybe 25 years old, standing in a crowd of protesters. 1965, Selma, Alabama. I marched across that bridge with Dr. King. Do you know what happened after we marched? David shook his head. We got beaten, tear-gassed, hospitalized. And the next day, the governor went on TV and said we were troublemakers, outside agitators, said we deserved what we got. Half the country believed him. So you gave up? David asked quietly. Margaret smiled sadly. Oh, we wanted to. We want to go home, tend our wounds, hide from the cameras and the hate mail and the threats. We thought we'd lost. We thought nothing would change. But it did change, Maria said. Eventually, slowly, because we didn't give up, because we marched again, because we kept showing up, kept telling our truth, kept refusing to be silent. Margaret took David's hand. Do you know why people like Daniel Miller work so hard to make you doubt yourself? Why? Because your doubt is their victory. They don't need to beat you in court if they can make you beat yourself. They don't need to win if you surrender. She squeezed his hand. David, listen to me. You're 17 years old. You've already shown more courage than most adults ever will. You sat through that humiliation with dignity. You refused hush money. You're still standing. That's not weakness. That's strength. But Columbia rejected me. My dream school. Columbia rejected you? Margaret laughed. An actual laugh that startled both David and Maria. Baby, Columbia made a mistake. And you know what? They're going to regret it. Because your generation has something my generation didn't have. What's that? The ability to reach millions instantly. You can bypass the gatekeepers. You can tell your story directly. And when you do, when you speak from your heart about what you've lived through, people will listen. Margaret pulled up her phone again. Elena Rodriguez, the lawyer I connected you with, she wants to take your case. Pro bono. She believes you can win. Not just money. Real change. Accountability. But what if we lose? Then we lose fighting, which is better than winning by staying silent. Margaret looked between David and Maria. The system is designed to make you give up, to make you think fighting back is too hard, too expensive, too risky. They want you tired. They want you scared. They want you to disappear. She stood. But here's what they didn't count on. You're not alone. I'm standing with you. Ashley's standing with you. Elena's standing with you. And out there, she gestured toward the window, toward the city beyond. Millions of people you'll never meet are standing with you too. You really think we can win? David asked. I think you already are winning. You didn't stay in your seat and take it. You didn't sign away your voice for money. You're still here, still standing, still fighting. That alone terrifies people like Daniel Miller. Margaret moved toward the door, then turned back. One more thing. You know what's different about your generation versus mine. What? When they came after us, they could control the narrative, control the media, control who got to speak. But they can't control you. That video, 20 million people saw what really happened. They can't take that back. They can't edit the truth away. She smiled. So here's my advice. Stop worrying about Colombia. Stop worrying about what you've lost. Start thinking about what you're going to build. Because this moment, this is your origin story. And trust me, the best parts are still ahead. After Margaret left, David sat quietly for a long time. Then he opened his laptop, pulled up the 4,000 words he'd written days ago, started editing, strengthening, preparing. Mama, he said, I'm going to tell my story. The whole story. Everything. Tomorrow I'm posting it. And whatever happens after that, we'll face it together. Maria smiled through tears. Together. That night, David didn't sleep. He wrote. He remembered. He refined his voice until every word rang true. By morning, he had something powerful, something that couldn't be ignored, something that would change everything. He was done being the victim in someone else's narrative. It was time to write his own. Jennifer Lee, the passenger who'd recorded the original video, had been watching the controversy unfold with growing unease. She'd posted a 45-second clip, what she witnessed from row 21. It showed the coffee pour, David's reaction, the immediate aftermath. But she had more. She had the full 3-minute video. She kept recording through the entire confrontation. She kept it private because she wasn't sure what to do with it. Part of her wanted to stay out of it, but another part kept thinking about her son. Then she saw Daniel Miller's interview, watched him claim it was an accident, watched him play the victim, watched him lie. Jennifer made a decision. She uploaded the full video to her account. No edits, no cuts, just raw, complete footage from her angle in row 21. The video showed everything. Daniel getting his coffee from Ashley, setting it down on his tray table, sitting calmly for nearly a minute. David focused on his notes, arm resting naturally on the shared armrest, not moving, not bumping anyone. Daniel looking at David's arm, then at David's face, a calculating expression crossing his features. Daniel picking up the coffee cup, pausing, looking at David's arm again, then the deliberate tilt. The coffee streaming out, not spilling, pouring, aimed directly at David. David's cry of pain, the paper scattering, the shock on his face. Daniel's smirk, that unmistakable expression of satisfaction. But the new video showed more. It showed the racist comment. It showed Daniel's aggression in the aftermath. It showed him threatening David. It showed other passengers backing Daniel up without having seen what actually happened. Most damning, it showed a lie. The video Daniel's team had released, the enhanced footage showing David's elbow moving, was clearly edited. The full video proved there was no bump, no accident, just assault. Jennifer posted it with a simple caption, "I was scared to share this, but I can't stay silent anymore." This is the full unedited video. Daniel Miller is lying. David Thompson deserves justice. The video exploded. Within 6 hours, 10 million views. Within 12 hours, 25 million. By the end of the first day, Over 40 million views across all platforms. News outlets embedded it. Legal analysts dissected it. Social media exploded. This proves it. Deliberate assault. Miller lied. How did anyone ever defend this man? The evidence is crystal clear. I owe David Thompson an apology. I doubted him. I was wrong. Even some of Daniel's previous supporters backed away. I believe this story, but this video, there's no way that was an accident. A passenger from 3 rows ahead, the man in the business suit who'd backed Daniel's story, deleted his social media accounts. Too late. Screenshots of his defense of Daniel were everywhere, paired with his name and employer. His company released a statement. These views don't represent our values. This employee has been placed on administrative leave. The truth was out, undeniable, unavoidable, and Daniel Miller's world began to truly collapse. At Miller Properties headquarters, the emergency board meeting began at 7 a.m. Daniel sat at the head of the table, but for the first time in 20 years, he didn't control the room. His business partner, James, spoke first. Daniel, the full video, it's everywhere. Our stock is down 32%. We've lost 14 major clients in the past 72 hours. The Chicago deal is dead. The Hudson Street development lost its financing. We can recover. We can't recover with you at the helm. James interrupted. I'm sorry, Daniel, but the board voted. We're asking you to resign. Daniel's face went red. Resign? From my own company? Technically, it's our company now. We own 55% combined. We have the votes. You can resign or we can force you out. But either way, you're done. You can't do this. We can. We have to. Your actions on that plane, they don't just reflect badly on you. They reflect on all of us. We have employees, investors, partners. We have responsibilities. The general counsel slid papers across the table. Here's the buyout offer. It's fair, given the circumstances. You'll leave with significant assets, but you'll have no role in the company going forward. Daniel stared at the papers. His life's work, his empire, being taken from him. If I refuse, then we go hostile. We force you out in a very public, very ugly process. Trust me, Daniel, you don't want that. Daniel's hands shook as he picked up a pen. Sign page 6, initial pages 2 and 9. The lawyer said quietly. As Daniel signed away his company, tears of rage streamed down his face. At the airline's headquarters, a similar meeting was taking place. The full video changes everything, the CEO said. Ashley Martinez's report was completely accurate. She witnessed an assault, documented it properly, and protected a minor passenger. And we suspended her. We're facing a PR catastrophe, the PR director admitted. The hashtag reinstate Martinez is trending. Flight attendants across multiple airlines are threatening solidarity actions. We have to fix this. What about the Thompson settlement offer? They rejected it days ago. And now with this new video, if they sue, we're going to lose badly. Our liability just multiplied. The general counsel cleared her throat. I recommend we reinstate Ashley immediately with full back pay and a commendation. We issue a public apology. We implement the anti-discrimination training, she suggested. And we ban Daniel Miller from all our aircraft permanently. What about Thompson? We reach out. We apologize. We offer support. And we prepare for the lawsuit we probably deserve. The CEO nodded slowly. Make it happen. Meanwhile, social media continued to explode. Major brands that had partnerships with Miller Properties began distancing themselves publicly. We've ended our relationship with Miller Properties effective immediately. Our values don't align with the behavior demonstrated by Daniel Miller. We stand with David Thompson and all victims of discrimination. The boycott threats against the airline intensified. Passengers canceled flights. Flight attendant unions threatened job actions if Ashley wasn't reinstated. Hashtag boycott Flight 447 became hashtag boycott until justice. The FAA issued a statement. We are investigating the incident on Flight 447. Passenger safety is our highest priority, and that includes protection from assault and discrimination. Ashley's union released another statement. We demand immediate reinstatement of Ashley Martinez, who properly performed her duties. We also demand systemic changes to protect crew members who report passenger misconduct. The pressure mounted from every direction. The truth was out, and it demanded accountability. The morning after the full video went viral, David posted his 4,000-word essay. He posted it everywhere, his social media, Medium, anywhere people could read it. The title, "The Coffee Was Just the Beginning. What Flight 447 Taught Me About Being Black in America." It started, "My name is David Thompson. I'm 17 years old. I live in Brooklyn with my mother, who works 2 jobs, so I can dream bigger than our circumstances. 2 weeks ago, a man poured hot coffee on me because he didn't like that I existed in the seat next to him. This is what happened next." David wrote about his life, his father's death, his mother's sacrifice, the weight of carrying an entire community's hopes every time he enters a white space. He wrote about the flight, not just the coffee, but the microaggressions leading up to it, the racist comment, the way other passengers immediately defended his attacker, the way he knew, even before anyone spoke, that his version of events wouldn't be believed. He wrote about the aftermath, the destroyed interview, Colombia's rejection, the death threats, the temptation to take the airline's money and disappear. And he wrote about why he chose to fight. People keep asking me why I didn't just accept the settlement, why I'm making this a big deal, why I can't just move on. Here's why. Because Daniel Miller has done this before. Maybe not the exact same thing, but he's treated people like they're less than human. He's used his power to hurt people, and systems have protected him. Because staying silent doesn't keep me safe. It just keeps powerful people comfortable. Because my mother didn't work 2 jobs for 17 years, so I could learn that dignity has a price. Because somewhere right now, another black kid is sitting in a seat they paid for, wondering if they're allowed to take up space. And I want them to know, you are allowed. You belong. And when someone tries to tell you otherwise, there are people who will stand with you. The essay went viral immediately. News outlets quoted it. Teachers assigned it to students. It was shared millions of times. But more than that, it resonated. It connected. People responded with their own stories. This happened to me on a bus in Seattle. I'm a teacher, and I see black kids shrink themselves every day to avoid being seen as too much. I'm white, and I'm ashamed of how often I've looked away when I should have spoken up. David, you're changing how I see the world. Thank you. 3 days after posting his essay, David received an email from a major news network. We'd like to interview you, prime time, full segment, your words, your story, your terms. David talked to his mother and Margaret. They agreed it was time. The interview aired on a Friday evening. Peak viewership. The interviewer, a respected journalist known for tough, fair questions, treated David with respect. David, you become a symbol for many people. How does that feel? Overwhelming. Scary. But also purposeful. I didn't ask for this. But if my experience can help change things, then maybe it was worth it. What do you say to people who claim you're just seeking attention? I say they've never been in a position where their humanity was questioned. I say they've never had to choose between staying silent and losing everything or speaking up and risking everything. Attention is the last thing I wanted. Justice is what I need. What do you want Daniel Miller to understand? David paused, collecting his thoughts. I want him to understand that I'm a person, that I have dreams and feelings and a family who loves me, that treated me like I'm less than human because of my skin color. That's not okay. That's never been okay. And it won't be okay anymore. And what do you want to happen next? I want accountability. Real accountability. I want the systems that protected Daniel Miller to change, so they don't protect the next person who does this. I want other kids who look like me to know they don't have to shrink themselves. They don't have to make themselves small to be safe. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about every person of color who's been treated like they don't belong. Every service worker who's been disrespected. Every teenager who's been told their dreams are too big. I'm speaking for all of us. The interview got 20 million views in the first 24 hours. David Thompson, the kid with the ruined interview clothes, the destroyed Columbia dream, the coffee-stained folder, became a voice, a movement, a symbol of what happens when you refuse to be silent. If you think truth always wins, subscribe right now. Because here's what we've learned from David's story. Truth doesn't win automatically. It wins when people fight for it, when people stand up, when people refuse to look away. And if you disagree, if you think David should have stayed quiet, should have taken the money, should have made this easier for everyone else, explain why in the comments. We're listening. We want to understand. Because this conversation, this is what change looks like. Uncomfortable, difficult, necessary. So subscribe, comment, share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Because silence isn't neutral. Silence is choosing a side. And we know which side we're on. The question is, which side are you on? The Federal Aviation Administration doesn't move quickly, but when they do move, they move with authority. 3 weeks after Flight 447, the FAA completed its investigation. They interviewed everyone: David, Ashley, Margaret, other passengers, the pilot, the co-pilot, other flight attendants. They reviewed all video footage. The original viral video, Jennifer Lee's full recording, internal aircraft camera footage. They examined Ashley's incident report, the airline's response protocols, and Daniel Miller's passenger history. The lead investigator, Sarah Chun, compiled a 47-page report. The findings were clear. Passenger Daniel Miller committed assault against minor passenger David Thompson during Flight 447. The assault was unprovoked, deliberate, and witnessed by multiple passengers and crew. Flight attendant Ashley Martinez responded appropriately according to all protocols and federal aviation regulations. Her documentation was thorough and accurate. The airline suspension of Ms. Martinez was retaliatory and violated crew protection regulations. Mr. Miller's subsequent false statements constitute obstruction of a federal investigation. The FAA forwarded their findings to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. Criminal charges were recommended: assault, making false statements to federal investigators. The U.S. Attorney's Office reviewed the case. The evidence was overwhelming. The video footage alone was damning. They issued a statement: "We are filing charges against Daniel Miller for assault and obstruction. The facts are clear, the evidence is substantial, and we intend to hold Mr. Miller accountable." Daniel's lawyer tried to negotiate. "My client will plead to a lesser charge, pay a fine, and this can all end quietly." The prosecutor's response: "Your client assaulted a minor, lied about it, tried to ruin his victim's reputation, and showed no remorse. We're not negotiating. We're going to trial." But it wouldn't get to trial. The airline held a hearing about Ashley's suspension, not because they wanted to, because the union and public pressure forced them to. The hearing room was packed. Union representatives, media, other flight attendants showing solidarity. Ashley sat at a table with Marcus Rivera, her union rep, and a union attorney. The airline's panel consisted of 3 executives and their legal counsel. The airline's lawyer spoke first. "We're here to review the suspension of Ms. Martinez following the Flight 447 incident. Ms. Martinez, can you walk us through your actions that day?" Ashley did, calmly, professionally, exactly as she had in her report. "And you believe Mr. Miller deliberately poured coffee on the passenger?" "I don't believe it. I witnessed it. I was watching from the galley. I saw him look at David's arm, look at David's face, and then pour the coffee directly onto him. It was assault. That's what I documented in my report." The airline lawyer shuffled papers. "Yes, your report. Some have suggested your report was biased, that you made assumptions based on the races of the passengers involved." Ashley's union attorney stood immediately. "That's defamatory, and you know it. Ms. Martinez documented what she witnessed. The video evidence corroborates every detail of her report. Are you really suggesting she falsified an official incident report? I'm asking if her judgment was impaired by what? By doing her job correctly?" Marcus Rivera cut in. Let me save us all some time. We have Daniel Miller's complete passenger complaint history. 14 complaints over 5 years. 13 were against crew members of color. This airline accommodated him every single time. You gave him vouchers. You apologized to him. You never investigated whether he was a problem. Marcus slid a thick folder across the table. Ashley Martinez has 8 years of exemplary service. Commendations for passenger advocacy. Perfect safety record. 0 complaint about bias. But you suspended her for protecting a passenger from assault because the assailant was wealthy and white. The room went silent. The airline's general counsel cleared her throat. We were following standard protocol for controversial incidents. Controversial? Ashley's union attorney stood. A passenger committed assault on video. There's nothing controversial about that. What's controversial is that you suspended the crew member who did everything right. The lead executive, the VP of operations, held up his hand. I think we've heard enough. Ms. Martinez, we owe you an apology. Your suspension was wrong. You're reinstated effective immediately with full back pay. We're also issuing a formal commendation for your handling of a difficult situation. That's not enough, Marcus said. We want policy changes. We want protection for crew members who report passenger misconduct. We want the airline to ban passengers with patterns of discrimination. We want anti-discrimination training for all staff. The VP looked at his colleagues, then back at Marcus. Agreed. All of it. We'll work with the union to implement comprehensive changes. Ashley exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. One more thing, Ashley said quietly. I want you to reach out to David Thompson. Apologize to him. Not with money, to keep him quiet. With actual accountability. The VP nodded. We will. As Ashley left the hearing room, other flight attendants were waiting in the hallway. They applauded. Some cried. One hugged her. You stood up for all of us, a colleague said. Thank you. Ashley smiled through her own tears. We stand up for each other. That's how we win. Daniel Miller's lawyer called him with the news. The FAA forwarded their findings to the U.S. Attorney. They're filing charges. Assault and obstruction. Fight it, Daniel said. Take it to trial. I'll win. Daniel, you won't win. The evidence is overwhelming. The full video shows exactly what you did. Multiple witnesses corroborate it. Your edited video has been exposed as a lie. If we go to trial, you're looking at potential jail time. So what do you suggest? Plead deal. Plead guilty to assault. Pay restitution to David Thompson. Community service. Probation. No jail time. Daniel wanted to refuse. Wanted to keep fighting. But he was exhausted. Broke. Beaten. His company was gone. His business partners had bought him out for pennies on the dollar, compared to what his shares were once worth. His penthouse was on the market. He couldn't afford it anymore. His friends had distanced themselves. His phone barely rang. He was 55 years old and starting over, with a criminal record. Fine, Daniel said finally. Do the deal. 2 days later, Daniel stood in federal court and pleaded guilty to assault. The judge looked at him with cold eyes. Mr. Miller, you assaulted a minor because of your own prejudice and sense of entitlement. You then lied, attempted to destroy his reputation, and showed no remorse. I'm sentencing you to 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and restitution to David Thompson in the amount of $50,000. You're also banned from the airline for life. And, Mr. Miller, if you violate the terms of your probation, you will serve time in prison. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. I hope you use this time to reflect on your actions and become a better person. But frankly, I'm not optimistic. Court dismissed. Daniel walked out of the courthouse to a crowd of cameras and reporters. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to say to David Thompson? Mr. Miller, do you regret what you did? Are you sorry? Daniel pushed through without answering. He had nothing to say. No apology to offer. Just resentment and humiliation. The news coverage was brutal. Disgraced businessman Daniel Miller pleads guilty to assaulting black teenager. Miller forced to pay $50,000 to his victim and perform community service. The fall of Daniel Miller, from penthouse to probation. His mother called. She'd seen the news. "Daniel, how could you? I raised you better than this." He hung up on her. Meanwhile, Miller Properties issued its own statement. Daniel Miller is no longer associated with this company in any capacity. We condemn his actions and are committed to creating a workplace and business culture that values diversity, equity, and respect. The company began distancing themselves from Daniel's legacy. They renamed themselves, changed their branding, donated to civil rights organizations. They survived, barely, but Daniel didn't. His final statement came days later, posted on his nearly abandoned social media. "I regret that the situation escalated the way it did. If anyone was offended by my actions, I apologize. Not, I'm sorry I assaulted someone. Not, I was wrong. Just, if anyone was offended." The comments were brutal. "If anyone was offended? You assaulted a kid. This is an apology. This is you still refusing to take responsibility." Another text from Margaret. "Don't forget our lunch next Tuesday. I want to hear all about your classes. And I have some people I want you to meet." Margaret had become a mentor. She introduced David to other activists, lawyers, educators, helped him see his experience as part of a larger movement. David had also started something new, a student organization called Students Against Discrimination in Transit. It started small, just David and 3 friends. But it grew. Now there were chapters at 5 universities. Students documenting discrimination, supporting victims, pushing for policy changes. David had become an advocate, not because he wanted to be famous, but because he couldn't unsee what he'd seen, couldn't unknow what he'd learned. Every week, someone reached out with their own story. "This happened to me on a bus. My sister experienced this at a restaurant. I stayed quiet, but I shouldn't have." David responded to all of them. "Tell your story. Document it. Don't let them make you doubt what you experienced. And know you're not alone." The work was exhausting. Balancing classes, activism, his own healing. Some days, he just wanted to be a normal college student. But he couldn't go back to who he was before Flight 447. That version of David, the one who stayed quiet to stay safe, was gone. This David spoke up, stood up, used his voice for people who couldn't use theirs yet. Ashley Martinez stood in front of 30 new flight attendants at the airline's training facility. "Welcome," she said. "Over the next 6 weeks, you'll learn everything you need to know to be excellent at this job. Safety procedures, customer service, emergency protocols. But today, I want to talk about something equally important. Your responsibility to protect passengers." She clicked to a slide, passenger advocacy and anti-discrimination. "You're not just here to serve drinks and check seat belts. You're here to ensure every passenger feels safe. And sometimes that means standing up to passengers who are abusive, discriminatory, or threatening." A hand went up. "But what if the passenger is important? Rich? Connected?" Ashley smiled. "Then you still do the right thing. Let me tell you a story about Flight 447. She told them everything. The coffee incident, her decision to intervene, the suspension, the investigation, the vindication. "I risked my job to protect a 17-year-old kid I'd never met," Ashley said. "And it was the right thing to do. Not because it worked out, though I'm grateful it did, but because some things matter more than keeping your job." She looked around the room at young faces, hopeful and nervous. "Your job is hard. You'll deal with rude people, entitled people, people who treat you like you're invisible. But you also have power. You have the authority to document misconduct, to refuse service, to remove passengers who threaten safety. Use that power, not for revenge, not to feel important, but to protect people who need protecting, to stand up when it's hard, to be the kind of flight attendant who makes passengers feel like they matter." She clicked to another slide, a photo of her and David at the press conference. This is David Thompson. He's at NYU now, studying engineering, changing the world. And part of the reason he's there is because I did my job, because I saw something wrong, and I didn't look away. That's what I want for all of you. Not to become famous. Not to have dramatic confrontations. Just to have the courage to do what's right when the moment comes. The trainees applauded. After class, several approached her. That was inspiring. One said, I wasn't sure I could do this job. Now I am. I want to be that kind of flight attendant. Another said. Ashley hugged him. You will be. Just remember, we protect each other, and we protect our passengers. That's the job. Later, in her office, Ashley looked at her commendation letter from the airline. It was framed on her wall now, along with the FAA's finding that she acted with exemplary professionalism. But her favorite thing on the wall was simpler, a handwritten note from David. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist. You changed my life. David. Ashley smiled. She'd received awards, recognition, media attention. But this note, this simple thank you from a kid whose life she'd helped protect, this meant more than all of it. She stayed in touch with David. Coffee meetups when schedules allowed. Text check-ins. She'd become something like a big sister to him. And she'd started speaking at other airlines, at conferences, at union meetings, sharing the lessons of Flight 447, teaching others that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. Her career had changed. She was offered promotions, leadership positions. But Ashley chose to stay in training. She wanted to shape the next generation of flight attendants. Wanted them to understand that their job was about more than just service. It was about dignity. Every flight attendant she trained heard David's story, learned about microaggressions, about discrimination, about the power they held to protect vulnerable passengers. The airline had changed too. The policies Ashley pushed for were implemented nationwide. Passenger complaint patterns were monitored. Crew members were protected from retaliation. Anti-discrimination training became mandatory. It wasn't perfect. Systems changed slowly. But it was better. And Ashley knew that somewhere up there at 30,000 feet, flight attendants she'd trained were watching out for passengers, standing up when needed, making the skies a little safer, a little kinder. That was legacy enough. Daniel Miller sat in a small office in Midtown Manhattan, reviewing spreadsheets. He was an accountant now. Middle management at a firm that hired him despite his record because the owner believed in second chances. His penthouse was gone, sold to cover debts. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Jersey City. No doorman, no views, just walls and silence. His probation officer checked in weekly. His community service, tutoring kids at a community center in the Bronx, took up his weekends. At first, he'd hated it. Hated the humiliation of serving people he considered beneath him. Hated the way the kids looked at him warily, like they knew what he'd done. But slowly, something shifted. Not dramatically. Not a movie moment redemption. Just small changes. He started learning their names. Started actually helping them with their math homework, instead of just sitting there resentfully. One kid, Marcus, 12 years old, brilliant at math, reminded Daniel of someone. It took him weeks to realize. Marcus reminded him of David. Smart, hard-working, polite, the kind of kid who did everything right and still had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. One Saturday, Marcus stayed after. Mr. Miller, can I ask you something? Sure. My teacher showed us that video. Of you and that teenager on the plane. That was you, right? Daniel's stomach clenched. Yes. Why'd you do it? Daniel had rehearsed apologies with therapists, lawyers, his probation officer. But sitting there with Marcus, all the practiced words fell hollow. I don't know, he said honestly. I was angry. I thought I was more important than him. I thought I could treat him like he didn't matter. But he did matter. He did matter. He does matter. I just couldn't see it then. Marcus nodded slowly. My mom says people can change. She says if they really want to, they can become better. Do you want to? Daniel thought about lying. Thought about saying what people wanted to hear. But Marcus deserved honesty. I don't know, Daniel said. I want to say yes. But I'm not sure I know how to be different. I spent 50 years being one kind of person. I don't know how to become another. Maybe you just start small, Marcus said. Like, not pouring coffee on people is a good start. Despite everything, Daniel almost smiled. Yeah, that's a good start. Marcus went back to his homework. Daniel sat there thinking. He couldn't undo what he'd done. Couldn't erase David's pain. Couldn't reclaim his reputation. Couldn't go back to his old life. But maybe, he could stop being the person who did it in the first place. It wouldn't be redemption. It wouldn't erase his guilt. It wouldn't make him a good person. But it might make him a less bad one. That evening, Daniel opened his laptop. He'd avoided social media for months. Couldn't stand seeing his name dragged through the mud. But tonight he typed, I owe David Thompson an apology. Not the non-apology I gave before. A real one. He stared at the cursor blinking in the text box. What could he possibly say that would matter? That would mean anything? Finally, he typed, David Thompson, I assaulted you. I lied about it. I tried to destroy your reputation, to protect mine. I treated you like you didn't deserve basic human dignity, and I was wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just saying I was wrong. You mattered then and you matter now. I'm sorry. He hovered over the post button. Would anyone believe him? Would David? Did it even matter if they didn't? He posted it. The responses came fast. Too little, too late. You don't deserve praise for doing the bare minimum. This doesn't undo the harm you caused. They were right. All of them. But one comment stood out from a user named at @DThompson_NYU. I saw this. I don't know if you mean it, but I hope for your sake and for the sake of people around you that you do. Not for me, I'm good, but because becoming better is always possible, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. David had responded, not with forgiveness, not with acceptance, but with possibility. Daniel read it 3 times. Then he closed his laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow he'd wake up and go to his ordinary job and live his ordinary life. He'd never be powerful again, never be respected again, never reclaim what he'd lost. But maybe, just maybe, he could stop adding to the world's cruelty. Maybe he could be neutral instead of harmful. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. Late on a Thursday night, David sat alone in his dorm room. Marcus was out with friends. The building was quiet. David pulled out the coffee-stained folder he'd kept on his desk. He opened it carefully. The pages were still stuck together in places. The ink still bled across his carefully prepared answers. Columbia University interview preparation was still barely visible on the cover. David traced the stains with his finger. He'd carried this folder onto that plane with so much hope, so much fear, so much determination. That version of David, the one who boarded Flight 447, felt like a different person. He opened his laptop and started writing. Not for an assignment, not for his organization, just for himself. Dear past David, you're about to board a flight to New York. You're nervous about your interview. You're worried your clothes aren't nice enough. Your answers aren't prepared enough. Your everything isn't enough. And you're right to be worried, but not for the reasons you think. A man is going to pour coffee on you. On purpose. Because he can. Because in his world, you don't matter. And it's going to hurt. Not just physically. Though yes, that coffee is hot and it burns. But emotionally, the humiliation, the injustice, the way people defend him without even knowing his name, the way your dreams literally dissolve in front of you, you're going to want to give up. You're going to cry in airport bathrooms and doubt yourself and wonder if fighting back is worth it. I'm writing to tell you, it is worth it. You won't get into Columbia. That's going to hurt for a long time. You'll wonder if they rejected you because of the incident, because of your disheveled appearance, because you weren't the student you meant to be that day. But you'll get into NYU, full scholarship, and you'll realize Columbia wasn't the only path to your dreams. It was just one path. You found another. You're going to become an activist. You didn't plan for that. You just want to be an engineer, build things, make mom proud. But sometimes life pushes you into roles you didn't audition for, and you'll be scared. You'll receive threats. You'll be recognized on the street. You'll carry the weight of representing people who look like you, who experienced what you experienced. But you'll also meet amazing people. Ashley, who stood up for you when she didn't have to. Margaret, who's fought these battles longer than you've been alive. Students who join your cause. Strangers who message you to say, thank you for speaking up. You'll learn that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, that using your voice isn't arrogant, that demanding dignity isn't asking for too much. It's asking for the bare minimum. That day on the plane, you thought your life was over. You were wrong. It was just beginning. You learned that standing up for yourself isn't easy, but staying silent is harder. That injustice doesn't go away when you ignore it. It just finds new victims. You learn that one person standing up can change everything, but also that you can't do it alone. You need people, community, a network of others who believe justice matters more than comfort. Most importantly, you learned who you are, not the person you thought you needed to be to earn respect, not the version of yourself that shrinks to make others comfortable. Just you, taking up the space you're entitled to, existing fully, unapologetically. So thank you, past David. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for standing up even when you were scared. Thank you for trusting that the truth mattered. Because of you, because of what you endured and how you responded, hundreds of people have shared their stories. Policies have changed. A man who thought he was untouchable learned he wasn't. And a kid in Brooklyn who just wanted to make his mom proud, he's doing exactly that. Love, future David. He saved the letter. Maybe he'd share it someday. Maybe it would stay private. Either way, writing it helped. David looked at the coffee-stained folder one more time, then carefully put away. It was time to focus on what came next. Engineering classes. His organization. Building the future he'd almost lost. He pulled out his phone and texted his mom. Love you, Mama. Thank you for everything. I'm going to make you proud. I promise. Her response came immediately. Baby, you already have. Every single day. David smiled, turned off his light, and went to sleep. Tomorrow was Friday. He had classes, a study group, and a meeting with his organization about their next initiative. The work continued. The fight continued. But so did hope. The screen fades to black for a moment. Then text appears. David Thompson graduated from NYU with a degree in environmental engineering. He now works on sustainable building design while continuing his advocacy work. Ashley Martinez became the airline's Director of Passenger Services and Crew Advocacy. She has trained over 5,000 flight attendants on anti-discrimination protocols. Margaret Chin continues her civil rights work at age 78. She and David speak at schools together, sharing their story with the next generation. Daniel Miller completed his probation. He lives quietly and continues his community service work, though whether he has truly changed remains a question only he can answer. Flight 447 led to policy changes at major airlines across the country, but the work of fighting discrimination continues every day. The text fades. The narrator's voice returns. David's story spread around the world. Millions saw it. But the question is, what did you do with it? Because watching a video isn't enough. Feeling outraged isn't enough. Even subscribing to this channel isn't enough. Change happens when people act. The screen shows a montage, real stories inspired by David. A teenage girl reporting discrimination on a bus. A teacher standing up for a student. A bystander recording misconduct. A worker refusing to stay silent. Text appears on screen. These are real people inspired by David's story. David didn't set out to be a hero. He just refused to accept injustice. And his refusal inspired thousands of others to do the same. So here's our question for you. Have you ever been silent when someone was wronged? We all have. It's human. It's self-preservation. It's easier. Tell us in the comments below. Be honest. Be real whenever you stayed quiet. And if you could go back, would you do it differently? The screen shows David walking across NYU's campus, backpack on, heading to class. Just a regular student, living his life, chasing his dreams. But now the people he passes recognize him. Some smile, some nod. One gives him a thumbs up. David is no longer invisible. He exists fully, unapologetically, taking up exactly the space he deserves. The narrator's final words. If you believe in standing up to injustice, no matter how small, no matter how uncomfortable, subscribe right now. Because silence isn't neutral. Silence is a side of power. Silence protects the Daniel Millers of the world, while leaving the David Thompsons to fight alone. And if you don't believe people should speak up, if you think David should have just accepted what happened and moved on, tell us why in the comments. Seriously, we want to understand that perspective. Because these conversations, uncomfortable, difficult, necessary, this is how we grow. This is how we change. This is how we build a world where a kid can sit in an airplane seat without wondering if he's allowed to exist. The screen shows David one more time. He's sitting in a lecture hall, hand raised, answering a question. Confident, present, belonging. The final text appears. Your voice matters. Your actions matter. Your choice to stand up or stay silent matters. What will you choose? A final shot. David's coffee-stained folder, now in a frame on his dorm room wall. A reminder of how far he's come, how close he came to giving up, how much courage it took to keep fighting. Below the frame, a quote he wrote himself. They tried to make me small. I chose to grow instead. The screen fades to black. The narrator's last words. Because silence isn't neutral. It's the side of power, and we know which side we're on. The question is, which side are you on? Subscribe, comment, share, act. Because David's story isn't just a story. It's ours. All of ours. And it's not over yet.